let's get going here. We're going to be doing a Hank Williams Colourisation, this publicity shot from 1951. Hank Williams is a was a country singer. Very good one. One of the greats, one of the pioneers. So let's start by getting our layers. And this is just a freshly opened document. Let's get rid of what we don't need. And we're going to start by making a new group. And we'll make a copy of this one as well. Oh, a couple of copies. Just need one. Oops, let's put that up above the group. Get up there, you bastard. Alrighty. So we'll start with a just a flat color layer just for the skin tone. We'll work on that first. Let's start hard and then get easier. Solid color. Let's just go with bright red for now. And then we'll get that to affect the image by giving it a blending mode. Soft light works well for oops, let's take that out of, hang on, how come that's not affecting it? Oh, it's because it's completely, no, that's not it. Why am I tripping? Let's just pause this for a second. Stupid is what I am. Let's jump back into it now. There was no issue with putting that in a group. It was just the top layer was visible. Always something to look for in Photoshop. So just keeping track. Alrighty, and okay, so we're good to go. We've got our first flat color here, and it's not right. It doesn't need to be right just yet. I'll actually keep it that way for now, because what I want to start doing is blocking in that base color. So we'll invert that mask and then we'll reveal it where we want it. So I've got a white brush, zooming in quite tight. And where the edge is sharp, I want to make sure I've got a sharp brush. That'll be okay, but my opacity is low, so I'm going to bring that up to 100. And let's get brushing. Just using my trackpad for this, so I have to take it pretty slow. I'm going to ignore some areas, and then later on when those new colors need to come in, I'll block them in. So, as you'd imagine, the edges are quite important for this kind of thing because that's where the evidence of the coloring is going to be visible. If you sort of fluff those edges. Transition between hair and skin is always a little bit of a trick. So I'm just going to do a poor version of that right now and fix it up later. So this kind of thing here, kind of going over that shadow of the of that hat. Don't really want to do that, so as you can see I'm sort of struggling to get that edge correct. Again, I can fix things up later. I'll just get rid of this little piece here. So yeah, the hair and skin areas are the challenging in terms of brush control and that kind of thing. The challenging areas. This part of the face is a little bit sort of blends in a little bit to the background, so I hope that sort of edge sharpness is okay. Again, if it's not, I can assess that later on and fix it up. Okay, you're probably picking up my sound on the trackpad. That sort of sound there. not sure how to describe that sound, like a rubbing kind of. Now that is that? No, that's not skin. That would be a bit of shirt, wouldn't it? Let's take that out. It'd be a bit of his collar. It looks like that's the skin. This is probably just going to be part one. I'll continue this, once I've had enough. I'll continue this another time. But what I want to get right to start off is the skin tone. And then we can get the other pieces. He's got quite thin lips, as you can see. So what I might actually do is just fill them in with the skin tone and come back to it. As you can see, I'm doing leaving a lot of things for later on. Oops, I've probably gone a bit too low and coloured a bit of the tooth with the skin, which I don't want to do. Okay, that's probably okay for the mouth area. And now I can just block the rest of that in. The eyes, I'll just fill them in for now. Oops, I missed the ear over here. Missed one of his big old ears. Let's get that done. So I chose this image because, well, I've recently been listening to a lot of country music, but it's sort of a good candidate because it's a clear shot, it's pretty high resolution, and there's a good amount of sort of complexity in terms of this kind of portrait style image. So not just the person, the background's quite plain, but the guitar and the microphone add a little bit of complexity. So some of the embellishment on his suit and his tie. So I think overall this is a good kind of candidate. Now I could continue this layer and fill in the hand, but because that's in a pretty different location, we'll save that for another layer. So I think for now, this is good for our base sort of skin layer. So of course it's not correct in terms of the color. He looks a little bit too burnt there, so let's go ahead and fix that color up. The reason I went with this bright red to start off is just so it's a really kind of obvious covering, and now we can get a bit more accurate, which that isn't. So we're talking sort of warmish looking, around the sort of pale orangey brown type tones. This blending mode is soft light, so we're going to get a different appearance if we're using a different blending mode, which I can, go back to if I feel like it would improve the result. So this looks a little bit more accurate here. The good thing about using a solid color layer is that we can just easily come back into this and tweak this color if we feel it necessary. That's probably okay for now. Just gonna tweak that. Let's see if that could go up, down. I reckon that's probably okay for now. Remember, this is just our base kind of color. So we're going to put more colors on top of this, which is going to bring it more to life. Currently, it still looks pretty much as, deep as a black and white image with, just like this little sort of area where we've got this additional color going on. But if we examine that area, we can still see it's quite flat. There's, dark and light, but there's really only one color. And of course the teeth look very pale in comparison. We'll fix them up later on as well. For now, we just want to get our sort of skin more or less correct. Now, I should probably come back into this mask now that I've got a more accurate color in there. And let's block out the eye areas because they'll need a different color. So I'll just go into the same mask and I'll flip my brush around to black. and as you can see, I'm now taking out that color. If I'm coming into an area that's quite sharp with a round brush, that's probably not too bad. But if I wanted to just keep extending that and get that really sharp corner, what I do in that case is just go over the space and create the sort of bottom half of the corner, ignoring what's going on top, and then I flip my color back around and tidy up the other side, and that can get that sharp sort of area. Okay, one. So I'll do the same thing for this one over here, starting by kind of not worrying too much about what's going on in the bottom half, and then I'll come back and fix it. So an eye is a tricky area for coloring because there's a lot going on in an eye in terms of color. So later on, when we're trying to get the eye color right, we'll have a few layers going on there. Now, does that look right? Now, the other thing to think about when you're zoomed in this heavily, you might not need to worry too much, because when we're looking at the whole image, I don't think we'd be able to tell if I had left it as it was. Simply by taking out those areas of the eye, we can see that it's pretty, you know, this is coming together now. So typically the areas we'd find sort of the color changing somewhat, and it always depends on the skin tone, depends on lighting environment, all sorts of things. But typically we probably see some different color in the nose. Obviously the lips are going to be a slightly different color, and potentially the ears as well. Sometimes we might see some sort of pale cheek and jaw. You know, think about the parts of the face that kind of might be more exposed to the sun, and we kind of have to think about not just, you know, what colors we're putting in. We're thinking about what colors might. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what we're thinking about. We have to take a lot of liberties, really. But yeah, typically these are the types of areas: nose, lips, ears, sometimes like the eyes as well. These are the types of areas that tend to have some deeper colors going on. Or not necessarily deeper colors. I don't think that's the right way. It's not the right sort of term, but sort of varied changes. Anyway, let's stop talking about it. Let's start popping some of those changes in. What I think I might start with is perhaps cooling down the lower half of the face. So I want to get that jaw and the cheeks to be a little bit paler than they currently look. Now, I'm not sure if that would be the case with Hank. I don't believe he ever had a beard, but this is something you might see caused by like a freshly shaved face. Generally, if you've got a beard, your skin underneath that beard isn't copping as much sun, and that would cause that area to be a bit pale if it was shaved. It might not be the case, but it's going to make that skin look a little bit more lifelike. So I'll start by creating a new solid color layer. I'll start with another really kind of obvious color, and I'll come back and fix it up later on. Let's invert that, and start by pushing that mask in. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take my opacity of the brush down so that I'm not revealing its full intensity. I'm going to fix this brush up in a second, but that's even probably too strong right now. Let's bring it down to about 10. Okay, even that's quite strong. The other option I've got later is to affect the layer's opacity, and that's going to dull it down a little bit as well. But even at 10%, I feel like that is a really strong appearance. I think it's 5. Okay, that's a bit better now. Another thing that's going to really help when you're trying to blend colors is soft brushes. You saw how bad that looked when I had a sharp brush, so this is completely hard now. We can really easily see where that spot is. So if I make a softer brush, I'll do it in the exact same area. It's really hard to tell, or at least much harder than it was before. So I'm going to now come in to the skin area and just take away. Now every time, now something I need to keep my, or not necessarily keep my eye on, but keep in mind is every time I put a new stroke down, it's going to add, you can see that's only like 3 or 4 strokes and it looks really, really obvious there. So I'm just going to undo now and I'm going to keep my cursor pressed, remembering that every time I lift that cursor or release that button, it's going to put a new, an additional 5%. So this is all in one sort of go. Now, looking at this at a whole, it looks too contrasting. So I'm going to come back into my layer opacity in a moment and tweak it further. Now I'm just going to go over the edge here. And I've done that so that I can flip the, that way, okay. Flip the colors around. I'll bring it back up to 100 now. I'm just going to take out, you can sort of see where it's come over the edge because I've used a soft brush. I need to come back and kind of take out these parts here that have kind of gone over the edge. Okay, I'll also take out this little bit which I made earlier. Looking at that, it looks like he's got a very heavy kind of tan line going on there, so I need to sort of blend it a little bit more. I'm going to do a larger, softer brush now and just blend it a little bit. That doesn't look nearly as bad, but it's still fairly contrasting, so let's see if we can just dull that opacity down a little. Doesn't look too bad, I don't think. The other thing, the other option, now that we've got this as a separate layer, we can reveal more paleness, if you want to call it that, in other areas. Like if I, oops, let's bring that back around and let's bring that back to a low opacity. If I wanted to take out some of the color in the forehead, for instance, which I will do, taking a little bit of that out there through the bridge of the nose, things like that. Already it's starting to look better than it does with a single color. So this is just introducing some different hues. And like, really, let's look at these by themselves. Doesn't necessarily need to be super accurate. The more accurate, the better. But look how like this layer barely even registers if we're looking at it by itself. You can see it's making a slight difference on top of the other color. But really, it's all about those blending modes and how they get that color to integrate with the tones underneath. So anyway, I think I'm just going to flip that back around to black. I'm just going to take out some of that. Where's my opacity? Let's bring that back up. Just going to bring out some of that stuff that I put in, which I don't think was necessary. All right. Okay, let's look at the lips. We'll have to put some sort of fill into that mouth area because grey teeth don't look correct. I'm going to give it a sort of, we have to put a little bit of kind of warmth into that, a little bit of yellowing to make it look a bit more natural. So again, let's start with a new solid color layer. I'm just going to start with another. I always start with a basic kind of color and then fix it up later on. Small brush. I'll bring. Yep, we're back at 100% for the opacity, and let's reveal this area now. I need to put a blending mode on this so that it integrates with. Let's do the soft light again and small area. So yeah, I've got a pretty tiny brush and trying to be very controlled. A little bit too high there. I'm going to get into other areas, as you can see here, where other layers are active. So I'm just going to ignore them for now, and then I'll fix it up later. It's always the way. Always the way. Okay, so the whole, well, pretty much, yeah, pretty much that whole mouth area is covered. So let's now fix and neaten up the area. Whoops, I took out a little bit too much red there. Okay. Depending on the colors you're using and where you're applying them, it can get really weird. Just sort of taking this in, it looks like he's got a mouthful of blood. Yeah, which isn't super great, so we'll get this to look better in a moment. Oops, took a bit too much out there. This will be lips in a moment. Oh, well, this is it's lips already. It'll be covered lips in a moment. All right, let's work close. I'll just find some new areas which I'm not happy with and then try and fix them up. Let's work close so that we're kind of dealing with more detail than is sort of visible in the end, i.e. looking at the whole image together. That way when we do zoom out, we might be pleasantly surprised. Okay, that's obviously too much yellow, we don't want that. It probably needs to be around this hue though, we just don't want as much saturation. So we'll bring it way back. Yeah, it's hard. The other thing is it's hard to kind of get a sense of, this is something that we'll look at sort of comparing in a moment, hard to get a sense of bright and dark. I think it's probably right around the middle. I want it too yellow. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. It's going to look still a little bit unnatural with the lack of lip color, but that's probably not too bad. Again, this is all editable later on. If we want to make a change later, we can absolutely do that. So the teeth are okay for now. Let's do a lips layer. I should be, and I'll do that right now actually, renaming these layers as we go along. Skin. This is a bit of sort of, let's say, jaw color. You can see my keys are fucked. This was the teeth. And now we're going to work on the lips. Invert that so we start from scratch, and let's give it a bit of soft light. Alrighty, and I need to use a white brush. Lips are always a bit challenging. Well, there's lots of challenges, of course. Lips are challenging because it's hard to determine where the color sort of starts and stops. You have to use your knowledge of human faces to help you along with this sort of process. So I'm going to start by blocking in the top edge, and I hope my edge sharpness is about where it needs to be. That's one of the things that's harder to change later on. Color's easy to change later on, but your brush marks aren't. Alright, so now I'll just make a slightly bigger brush, and I'll probably go a little bit lower than I need to go. So what I'll do is I'll come back in from the other side and fix it up. Lips will always look stupid when you first do them. Big bright red clown lips going on here. And of course it looks like lipstick, but it only looks like that for a little while. Let me fix it up. Oops, I need to make that brush a bit sharper now. Probably a little bit too sharp. I'm just worrying about the bottom edge for the time being, and then I'm going to come back and fix the top edge. Oh, a little bit too low. Okay, he's got the Joker look going on. Let's fix that up. It's going to take the top, should be a bit softer. Taking the top out. Probably a bit too soft, actually. Yeah, it's hard to tell where the color would range to. But that's okay. As I said many times already, we can fix that up later. Looks like I missed a bit of lip color there, so I'll just fix that up as well. All right. We won't zoom out too much just yet. We'll get the color right, and then we'll give it a zoom out. Great thing about using these solid color layers, all you really need to do is double click on them and use the color picker, whichever way you like, and you can see the color change in real time. So obviously we're not looking at anything quite so saturated. I would imagine they're quite pale lips. I don't know why, just feels like that's about right. Hue lips can tend to be a little bit pink, purpley kind of colors. It all depends. All depends on the skin tone. They need to be probably a bit darker, a bit grayer. What do you think? That looks a bit more natural now. After we do these lips, what we'll do is, I'm just going to look at seeing how light versus dark they should be. Just looking at these extremes, it needs to be somewhere in between here. We'll have a look at what color works best for these lips, which is probably, I would think probably somewhere around here. And then we'll look at a method to compare the color version and the black and white version in terms of maintaining those lights and darks. You know, you can see here, based on my color choice, the end result is going to appear lighter or darker than the original image. And what it's all about is trying to find that perfect match. All right, I'm going to settle on that for the time being and come back into that if I need to later on. Looking at that now, I'm thinking could probably, seeing where it could probably come back a bit. I think that looks, does it look, I don't know. I don't know if that's better or worse. Maybe just softly taking it out a bit. Feels a bit sharp over here. Anyway, let's zoom out and see what that looks like. Yeah, look, when we're seeing the whole image, I'm still not completely happy with it, but we can fix it up later. Now, what I was talking about a moment ago was how to sort of compare the image after you've applied a bunch of color back to its original sort of state. So now that I'm doing that, I'm just turning that copy of the original black and white, I'm just turning that on top, turning the visibility of that on top of the colored version. And I can see automatically, like, the skin tone and everything isn't too bad. I can see the sort of marking between the lip color and the skin color is not really that evident in the black and white, which suggests that in terms of the brightness of that color, it should probably be about where the skin color is at. A slightly different hue, but probably the same brightness. So let's go back into that now. We can see that, yeah, it's a bit darker than that orange. Might have a look at that. All right, so if we wanted to be really accurate, we could take down that exact color. So I'll just copy the hex code. We'll come back into the lip color and we'll put that same code in. And as you can see, that's the same color now, but of course the hue is too strong. So we want to try and keep it to about the same brightness, which means that if I take it back this way, it should be about right. Sorry, there. I have changed the brightness there by bringing it back. I need to sort of bring it back diagonally. I'll just paste that code back in again. All right, so the brightness, you can see I was sort of doing something silly there. If I dragged it just horizontally back here, it's going to get brighter. If I drag it down this way, it's going to get darker. Now, if I drag it down and to the left, it should maintain that sort of overall sort of brightness. But the color will reduce. The saturation will reduce. Looking at that there. That's probably a bit closer now. So as you can see, this is the original color, or that's the color that I had originally chosen. And this is what I've now sort of landed on, which I think is a little better. Let's see if the hue can change somewhat. So that's just like a completely red hue there. You can see if I bring it down into the sort of purples, it's becoming quite pink. So I know that that's too far. The other thing, I don't know how red his lips might be. Based on the photograph, they really don't look like they've got that much color in them at all. So it's probably quite close to that orange hue. But I'm looking at that now and I'm thinking, ooh, maybe it's a bit off. But we have to make a decision at some point. So I'm going to go okay to that right now. And I'm just going to do another comparison. And I'm not noticing the lips jump as much as I did before. So that is closer. If it's perfect, I'm not sure, but it's closer than it was a moment ago. So we're getting somewhere. Let's do a bit of nose and some ears now. So we'll do another solid color layer. Another bright red to start the day. And a blending mode change of soft color. All right. Same thing as before with the jaw area. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag the opacity of the brush down to something that's really low, 5% or ish. And with white, I'm going to reveal some red on the sort of base of the nose. Maybe just a little bit more. And the ears. If you feel like there's too much going on in a space, what we can do is we can knock out that color in the original layer or where it was first placed. So if I'm thinking I want that red in the nose to come out more, what I need to do is come back into the skin layer and mask that off in that space. So I'm just putting the opacity is really low, so I might just bring it up to maybe 50 this time. And oop, that's obviously way too much. I should have kept it quite low. Let's see, maybe 20 is about right. So what I'm doing is I'm taking out orange from skin, leaving a place for the red. Now I should forgot that this was still that really ridiculous color. So what I might do is reveal some more. And I'll reveal it like completely. There he is, Mr. Rudolph. That just allows me to come back into that color and make a more appropriate decision. So now I need to remember that this is completely sort of like 100% color visibility here, because that mask is just like a little dot of white right in that space. So that means all that color is coming through. Which means that I should probably choose something a little bit more vibrant than it needs to be, because I can knock that back using a lower opacity brush. What do we think? There's another sort of thing, another kind of decision that I'm making sort of myself, because I don't know if Hank had a red nose, although I do know that he enjoyed the drink, and that can tend to get that nose a bit red. Not quite that red, but that's where the opacity comes into it. So I'm just going to sort of reveal some more like this. All right, way too red. This is what my nose looks like in the morning. I'm going to make that brush a bit softer actually. I'm going to invert it and just sort of blend that away. Now what I could do here if I think, oh, that color, it's probably not too far off, it's just too strong, what I can do is I can just affect the overall layer opacity. So that's 100 right now, 90, 80, it's getting weaker and weaker. Even at like 60%, it doesn't look too bad. This is at 50% now. That's at 40. Okay, and this is with and without the adjustment. I think that's pretty close. Let's do another kind of comparison there. Yeah, I think that's probably okay. Let's jump back in. What I'm thinking now is I'm going to jump back into this orange for the main skin color. And I just want to see, okay, so that's too red now. I want to see if we can get that to a place where it sort of helps the other areas look a bit more natural. Let's take out, maybe it's not quite so vibrant. Or maybe what I'm doing is just ruining it, or, you know, taking it further away from what looked natural. I think I should probably not mess with that color, or if I do, I'll come back to it later and try and have a go. So what are we at? We're at like 5 layers now. That's sort of, you know, looking at the whole picture at once. And we can see, like, yeah, there's some different colors we can pick up there. Again, let's just look at that one by itself. And there's not like really any depth there at all. As we add different elements and get colors to pop a little bit more in other areas, what we're building is that kind of color depth. And it makes things look a bit more authentic. I'm going to do the same thing on this red layer with the ears. I'm going to bring some, let's just bring opacity down. Because the opacity of the layer isn't quite as strong, I'm not going to use a super weak brush. So this brush is like 30%. And I just want to reveal some. Now this ear in the shade is a little bit of a trick. Let's see, original one. You can see it's quite dark compared to the other ear. That's going to be, you know, provided by the levels in the photograph. But in terms of color, hard to say. I'm just going to go back into the skin layer with black. What we might see, the very top of the ear, I'm not sure what the different parts of the ear are called, but the inside might be a bit paler, or not quite the same color as the as that part of the ear that faces outward, or more towards the sun. So maybe the bottom parts of the ears might not be quite as colorful, let's say. All right, it's getting places. The eyes, I'll do that in another session. What I want to have a bit of a go at is the hair, and bringing the hair and the skin together. Let's come back into the skin layer mask, and with a soft brush, I'm going to bring it back to 100%. Just going to blend that edge a bit so it's not quite so stark. Oops. Here's a trick. If you want, like I don't want to affect the skin of the ear. I do want to affect over here. What I can do is if I go into my lasso tool and I just sort of lasso the area that I want to work on, which is pretty much just this. Oops, I preemptively released that. Let's do that again. And I ignore the part that I don't want to work on, so the ear. What that allows me to do is brush just in that space. So I've gone back to my brush. You can see I'm able to take out all the color here, but nowhere else. So that might be something to do. Anyway, just going to brush a bit more of that out. Might flip that around now and just bring some more back in. All right. Probably all right. Okay. Let's go to the top. I forgot to, let's just call this one redness. Redness, because it's sort of on the ear and the nose and a few other places, so we'll leave that there. Hair. So if I go in, create any solid color, he's got dark hair, as you can see. So whatever color I choose, it's probably not going to be too much of an impact. So I'm going to go with like a sort of a dark brown color. And let's pop that into a soft light. You can see, actually, while I'm doing this, you can see the different effects that different color modes, blending modes have on the result. And some of these, so this is the mask isn't affecting it yet. So that's why you can see the whole image change. But yeah, you might choose, like, soft light is a good one for just your sort of, you know, straight up kind of maintaining the lights and the darks, but, you know, still giving you a bit of the color that you've chosen, still having that come through. Some might be a bit too polarized. Some will work quite nicely. Color. See, it just sort of blocks everything out. But anyway, I'll go back to soft light. I'll hide the adjustment. Pardon me, I'll invert the mask so that it's not kind of coming through in all the different areas. And now we'll reveal it where we want to reveal it. Yeah, as you can see, this is a dark color that's coming in, probably too dark. But that's okay. I can reveal it where I want to reveal it, and then I can come back into that color in a second and make a better choice. It's going well into the hat, which we don't want to do, so I'm just going to bring that back a bit. As you know, hair is a tricky thing to deal with the brush. So I'm just going to have a pretty basic mask going on here. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Okay. Now if I turn that top image on, we can see that we're losing some of these very, very, very faint highlight details, like a couple of little highlights over here. We're losing them quite a bit. So yeah, we can tell that that layer color isn't as good as it can be. So let's get back into it, and we know it needs to be a bit lighter. Too light, and just as you can see, won't work. He wasn't blonde, I don't think. See what that looks like. Pretty close. Maybe just a little bit lighter. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. You can see, because of my poor masking, we've got that little glow effect around the edges of the hair. The only thing that can really fix that up is better masking. So I can do that, but for now I won't bother, because that's going to be a little bit time consuming, and really what we're talking about is the colorization and stuff. So yeah, that's not too bad in that space, but it is annoying me, so I'm just going to try and just take out that glow effect. Another thing you can do, if I, well, this is only affecting the this one particular color here, but if I was working on this layer down here, for instance, I talked about that before. Just about sort of lassoing an area and then sort of focusing, having that as the focus. That was all I was going to say. On the same layer, we can reveal it in the other area, the hair in the other area. This is much more shaded on this side, so you really won't see that color come through that much over here. But regardless, let's block out a space for it. What you can see happening is I'm revealing the color over another area that's been revealed, which is of course the skin, and it's causing this sort of overlaid, saturation, which we want to avoid. So I'm just going to flip my cursor, flip my color around, I'm now brushing with black, and I'm taking out that kind of overlaid effect. And I'll take it out of here as well. Yeah, look, there's not going to be much evidence on this side because the yeah, it's in shadow, and there's not as much hair over here. We really won't be able to pick it up that much at all. But let's do the comparison. We'll see how that looks back. Yeah, so I'm missing it. Oh, I forgot to sort of blend it better. Just going to bring this in a bit. And what I'll need to do is I'll need to go back into my mask for my skin and affect that mask there. Let's just get that sort of softer. Take that out a bit. Flipping it around, a little bit of a bigger brush. How does that look now? It'll do for now. Alright, so how's Hank looking? His skin's looking a fair bit more, yeah, lively now. Of course, we still have that, you know, it's until like the very last thing is colored, or at least until the majority of the image is colored. It will still always look quite unnatural, because we know it's, well, currently we're looking at a black and white image with a little bit of color in it. Until we're looking at something that's mainly color, we won't get that kind of illusion of a natural looking picture. One last thing we'll do for this session is the eyes. Eyes are a trick. They are a trick. You'll need some color for the whites as well as the iris and the pupil, because they all have different colors. So let's start with another solid color layer. Choose the classic red for the time being, and we'll make this the iris. I forgot to rename this one. This was hair, and this one will be sorry, this isn't the iris. Let's make this one the eye whites, which I'm sure there is a medical term for that. All right, let's reveal it. I won't even bother about the blending mode just yet. We just want to reveal them where they need to go. All right. Let's put the blending mode on so I can see the borders. Okay. When we do the iris, we'll have to take out this part of the eye white. Unless, well, we could probably get away with it because it all depends on the color of the eye. You can get away with it with darker eyes. Hank's got like dark brown eyes. So they'll probably be quite a bit darker than the color that we're going to use for the eye whites. So it might like dominate well enough. If it was like a lighter blue eye, we might have some trouble with the color clashing with the eye whites a bit. But for darker eyes, you can probably get away with it. All right, so I was going to turn he's quite baked, as you can see at the moment. Let's just bring the original back. So we can see, yeah, like on this eye over here, we can see that there's, yeah, a bit of shadow creeping in. So we've kind of got a bit of a barometer to check to see if we're too light or too dark. And obviously right now, we're too dark. So I'll double click on the color. For eye whites, it's probably going to be a little bit cooler than you might expect. So some sort of bluish, purplish hues is probably where you're going to be looking. But quite desaturated because, yeah, they're really not quite as intense. But yeah, something around here might work. Maybe a little bit back into the pinks a bit. as intense as what I had it before. Might be pretty grey. Leave it like that for now. New one. This will be the irises. Another really intense colour to start off. Let's reveal them. Oops. Quite a small area, so let's zoom in on this, and I probably need a slightly sharper brush. Where am I? Soft light. Dark brown eyes, Mr. Hank Williams. Green. Oops. Too bright, probably too dark. This is where the comparing to the original, this is where that can really help. So you can see it's giving, because I've overlaid it on top of that eye whites area, it's integrating a little bit of that sort of coolness from that color. If I find that to be too problematic, what I'll need to do is go back into the mask of the eye whites and take that out. As I said before, it's probably okay. I think that the eye color is dark enough that it won't be incredibly noticeable. Let's go with that. And I'll reveal it on the other side as well. Okay. Finally, the third layer within the eye. Just our good old pupil. And this will be a nice easy one to do. The Terminator. So this is probably, I've sort of gone a little bit quicker than I really should have. Then, yeah, I think I probably will need to take out some of that area in the eye whites mask. Let's flip that around so you can see how the brown is much more, much closer to the actual color, because we don't have that overlay anymore. And actually that was a good decision, because yeah, we get more color depth now. I'll do the same thing for the pupil on the iris, and I haven't been renaming this stuff. When we're this far zoomed in, we'll always see, you know, these telltale signs of yeah, this kind of recoloring work. We can see quite easily where the colors kind of change, which wouldn't be as evident in a original color image. All right, so now that we see that, all I can see, the eyes look a little bit too pink, I think. So let's go back into that layer. Yeah, I think even just like that slight little change, just gonna undo and redo that. Yeah, that's a bit better. Some of these colors are barely there at all. Some of these colors are barely there. Looking at the lips again, I'm still not happy with them. I think I have to come in later on and fix them up. But let's see what those eyes look like now. All right, so you can probably see that. A bit too dark, so my iris color needs to come up a little bit because the pupils are more definitive in the black and white version, meaning that there's more contrast between the black pupil and the presumably brown eye color. In ours, we don't see as much contrast there, so we need to come back into this layer and let's bring this up a bit, and now we're seeing a bit more contrast between the pupil and the iris. That's a bit better. See the highlight coming through a bit more. I need to poke a bigger hole into the mask there, but otherwise I think that's pretty good for now. So there's Hank's face with a bit of natural sort of skin tone coming in. The next session we'll continue working on the same image, starting to look at the clothing and the and other things we'll be working on is sort of coming back in, reevaluating the color choices that we've made here and seeing if we can, put any more improvements in. But yeah, starting off with the harder part, which is the skin, and then we can kind of work on some easier areas after that. So hope you enjoyed this stream of Hank Williams Colourisation, part 1. I'll catch you again for part 2 whenever